Okay, everybody, my name is Christy Lee. Most of you know who I am. I am a tax attorney. I have offices in Alaska, Hawaii, and Texas. And I am doing another seminar on the PPP program. Now that most of you have your money or have been approved and are going to receive your money, we need to focus on forgiveness, right? That's what it's all about, forgiveness. So we've talked about before, 75%, you have to spend 75% of your loan amount towards payroll. But that's why I wanted to do a webinar on FTE, the full-time equivalent. So the title is, what the hell is it? What the hell is a full-time equivalent employee, and how is that going to affect my forgiveness, right? We all want to be forgiven. So as I've stated before, and I'm just going to say it quickly, this is not legal advice. If I am not your lawyer, you need to either call my office for a consultation to get legal advice, or you need to talk to your own CPAs. The new regulations are coming out every single day. Every day I'm getting new regulations, and they just keep changing. So what I'm telling you now might not even be relevant a week from now. I hope so, because I spent time on this webinar, so I hope it's relevant. As before, I'm going to answer your questions. There's a question box. Also, there is I'm just looking, question box, and then there's like another thing that you can just send questions to me. I will answer those at the end. Sometimes I don't get to them, I don't see them, and I'm sorry, and I usually will respond back to you directly via email to get you an answer to the best of my knowledge. All right, so let's get started. I have this presentation, and I just wanted to show you the very first thing. This is the actual statute. This is the law, the CARE law, and this is about forgiveness and what happens. I'm not going to go through it but I just wanted you to have it. If you wanted to come back and look at it, these are the things. For you to be eligible for forgiveness, this is what you have to do. Now, there are limits of the amount of forgiveness if you have a reduction. So I love this one, number 2, reduction based on reduction in the number of employees. And that is that full-time equivalent. If I read this to you, you probably would hang up and not listen to any more of my webinars. This is awful. So I'm summarizing it for you. And a lot of people have asked me, where do they come up with the 75% need to be paid towards payroll? Because it kind of seems weird that there's 8 weeks in which the payroll can be paid, but they gave you 2.5 months worth of loan on the payroll that you paid last year. And so you just take 56 days are in 8 weeks, 76 days are 2.5 months, and it's about 74, and they rounded it up to 75. If anybody because people have asked me like where they come up with 75, that's where they came up with. One thing you need to note and be really careful of, when you were doing your payroll or when you were doing your loan and you said, hey, this is what my loan amount is, you probably included bonuses and raises and such. So you need to be really Johnny on the spot when you do payroll to say, hey, I need to make sure that my 75% is met, because I'm telling you, that is the atomic bomb. You have 74.2%, 74.9%. They are not rounding up. You will lose 100% of forgiveness. So I'm like a broken record. And I know that's why some people are saying, well, I want to pay bonuses. And I'm like, don't do that. But anyway, that's other webinars that I've already done. So let's go back to the slides. Here's a nice explanation of what an FTE is. So one thing I want to talk to you about before that, full-time equivalent is when you have somebody who does not work full-time. If you have somebody who works 40 hours, they're full-time. They're full-time. But what if you have a whole bunch of part-time? What if you're a restaurant and you have a ton of part-time employees? Well, your employees don't have to now work up to 40 hours. You add those employees together. Now, the SBA, which is where you received your loan, that PPP came from, the SBA, the Small Business Administration, they said in 2014 that a full-time equivalent is adding up everybody, your part-time people, to 30 hours. They've not said that here. And it is an SBA loan, but it's a completely different statute. And they have given us no guidance on it. They keep saying they're going to give us guidance. So as I've said before in my other webinars, just go with 40 hours, unless you absolutely positively, your full-time employees don't work 40. Say they work 37 and a half. then your full-time equivalent is 37 and a half. Sometimes I listen to other webinars because a lot of this stuff is not, I mean, it's not black and white. It's very, very gray. And I just want to see what other people say. And I heard one CPA say, I'm going to take a shot in the dark. And I'm going to say that the full-time equivalent employee is 30 hours. And I thought, well, that shot in the dark would suck if it's wrong, right? What if you're wrong? Then you could be, you're going to have problems. Now, keep in mind, you meet that 75% of payroll, but you don't meet the full-time equivalent. That doesn't mean that your loan's not forgiven. They're just going to reduce your loan. So let's go look at my example. Jimbo's Burgers. We have 4 full-time employees, each work 40 hours, right? That's obviously 4 full-time employees. That's 4. You got 4 now. Then I have 4 part-time employees, and they each work 20 hours. So that equals 2 full-time equivalent. You add 20 plus 20, that's 40. That's 1. You do it again. Now we have 4 part-time employees that work 10 hours each. Well, you add 10 times 4, and you've got 1 full-time equivalent employee. You've got 1 part-time employee that works 8 hours and another part-time employee that works 23 hours. You do not have a full-time equivalent. Now, this is my look back period. Remember, we got to look back first to what it was February 15, 2019 to June 30, 2019. So this is what Jimbo's Burgers had. So Jimbo actually had 13 employees here. That's what he had, 13. But he only had 7 full-time equivalent. So technically, obviously, I have 14 there, so that number's wrong. But technically, right now, during the PPP, he could have 7 full-time employees, 7 people working 40 hours each, and he would still meet the full-time equivalent, right? He doesn't have to have 13. He doesn't have to have the same number. Now, another way to do it is to actually just add all the numbers, right? So it's the same fact pattern with one little change. I'll tell you about in a second. But the same fact pattern of where you have 4 full-time employees, so I added 40, 40, 40, 40. 4 part-time employees working 20 hours, so I added 20, 20, 20, 20, right? 20 hours of the 4 people. Then I have 4 part-time employees that work 10, so I added all the 10s up. Then I have 1 part-time employee 8 and one part-time employee at 23. I add those up and I get 311 total hours. I divide that by 40 and I have 7.775 full-time equivalent employees, but you cannot round up. So again, same as the one before, I have 7 full-time employees and then I have 7 over here. But if you see, I changed one thing. If you look at the 4 full-time employees that worked, I made it 48 hours. You can't add overtime. So it's only 40. So if you have people that were working overtime during that look back period, it's only 40 hours. In order to determine, like I said, again, look back, February 15th, 2019 to June 30th, 2019. Or if you weren't in business during that time, then it's January 1 to February 29th, 2020. Now, again, remember what I said. If, and I even have I have the little example here. If you have 10% fewer full-time equivalent employees in this 8-week period than you do in your look back, they're just going to reduce your forgiveness by 10%. So this is not the atomic bomb. It's okay. The other thing that can be affected, again, not the atomic bomb, is if you decrease their wages, which happens, right? I mean, I have clients who say to me, Christy, this is all fine and good, but I can't hire all those people back. Because if you remember, you still have to pay the FICA and the Medicare. That could be thousands of dollars you just don't have. That's okay, right? You know, don't go into debt for this, but at least you now have some forgiveness. So the other thing that you have to look about is wages. If you reduce their wages more than 25% of what they are receiving, that's also a penalty for your forgiveness. Again, not the atomic bomb, but it's going to be a percentage reduction. So on the slide, I gave you a $100,000 salary. Now keep in mind, and I did this on, I believe, my first webinar, if someone's making $250,000 and you say to them, I'm sorry, I can't pay you $250,000, I'm only going to pay you $100,000, that is not included in this wage reduction. It's anything below $100,000. You could take someone with a $250,000 salary and reduce it to $75,000 and you're still fine. Now, what I mean by that $100,000 It's not in the 8-week period. It is for the whole year. So it's just a formula of how you can come up with what would be actually 25%, right? So you take 100,000, divide it by 52 weeks. Your average weekly paycheck is going to be $1,923.08, but you can only pay them 75% of that. And so you get the figure of $1,442.13. All right, so what I'm going to talk about in just a second is, this is the Hail Mary. This was actually in the CARES Act. And I put it as the very last slide. I put the actual language, and I'm not kidding. I want to find out who wrote that, and then I want to punch them. I'm not a violent person, but it is so horribly written. And it even says that let me get to that. Let me just get to the language real fast. Okay, so this is how I paraphrased it. The amount of loan forgiveness will be decreased for a reduction in the number of full-time employees or a reduction in the salary of one or more employees if, like, say between February 15th and April 26th, you've had to decrease your, because of the COVID-19. But if an employer has eliminated, I love that, they actually use the word eliminated, I left it in there. If the employer has eliminated by June 30th, 2020, the reduction in the number of full-time employees, or eliminated the reduction in the salary or wages, then it's all gone. And by the way, that's me actually, that's paraphrasing the crap that they wrote. But I should have written it even a better way. This is what it actually says. If between that date, February 15th to March 26th, you had to lay people off or really cut their salaries substantially, if you fix all of that by June 30th, meaning you give them back their wages and you hire all the people back by June 30th, then there's no penalty. But there has been no guidance on that at all. So I don't know if it's in the law. They can't change that. So that's in the law. That's like your Hail Mary. Now I wanted to also put things on, this is actually the regs. So they said here, do PPP loans cover paid sick leave? The answer is yes. But let me show you how annoying that they are. Here's basically the exact same question 2 days later with the exact same answer. So they're spending lots of time, I guess, making themselves feel important. So keep in mind, somebody is sick, that is covered under PPP loan. If somebody has vacation time, that is covered under PPP loan. Another regulation, the amount of forgiveness of a PPP loan depends on the borrower's payroll cost over an 8-week period. When does that 8-week period begin? It begins now. Well, I'm sorry, let me say it. It begins the second you receive your money. Now, I will tell you, the AICPA, the American Institute of CPAs, they are trying to have that changed. I don't think that they will be successful because the money's already here. So you have to use it during this time, which I don't know if any of you have found out, but Alaska judges are now sweeping accounts and sending levies to banks, which is pretty disgusting in my opinion, for the PPP money. So guess what? Now you've got trouble because your money now is missing and it's in the court and you have to go fight to get that back. Sorry, getting to the share again. Still learning how to do webinars. Here is another from the actual regs. Will a borrower's PPP loan forgiveness amount be reduced if the borrower laid off an employee, offered to rehire that same employee, but the employee declined the offer? That's that fraud seminar that webinar that I did last week. So they're saying if you go and you had to lay somebody off, you go back and ask them, and they say no, they're not going to do it. You have to document that. I mean, I want that in an email. I want not a document that you call the person. I want it in a formal email, and then I want you to call the Department of Labor of wherever you're located, and I want you to rat them out. And I want proof that you did that. That will not hurt you, right? So that's another like Hail Mary. But if you just say, yeah, I asked them and they said no, you have no proof, they're not going to care. So here's some questions from viewers. These are the questions I received. Sole proprietors with 0 employees can get up to $20,833 in PPP. By the way, that is a configuration of if they were making $100,000. So just let you know. So it's not like you actually get that. That is if the person makes $100,000. If there are no payroll costs, what items can that person be allowed to use funds for? Well, there are payroll costs, my friend. That would be you. You are getting the money, right? You are the payroll cost. So guess who's going to get that money? You are. You're going to write yourself for $20,833. There you go. You're welcome. I will tell you, sole proprietors get the worst deal in the Internal Revenue Code. I mean, you guys get screwed over all the time. It is the only time in my entire career that I can say, if you're a sole proprietor, remember that's Schedule C, right? On your own, you only file one tax return that goes on your tax return. You are golden in this time. Because seriously, you can just write yourself one check and you're good. So again, but you ask, specifically, can it be used for mortgage, utility, or rental property, for example? No. And the reason why is because it's not to help your rental property, it's to help your business and to help you. Or can it be used for mortgage utilities on personal residence? Again, no, it cannot. But write yourself a nice check. Another question. I am reading that FTE is determined by a 30-hour work week. We do not pay overtime until you hit 40 hours, which is what we call full-time for our business, which is correct. Right, remember, I actually really geared this seminar, this webinar, over that question. Because remember, you're gonna add up all your part-time people to get 30 hours. That's what you're gonna do. You're gonna add them all up. You don't, and I don't believe it's the 30 hours. I know that you're thinking that the SBA is saying it's 30 hours. There's people out there saying that the full-time equivalent is 30 hours. I'm just not taking that chance. I wouldn't take that chance if I was you. I am reading that FTE is determined by a 30-hour, oh wait, I'm sorry, I just did that one, my bad. Next question. I have my regular business that has filed and received a PPP loan, an advisory firm, and a restaurant that's also received a PPP loan. I find myself now having to work at the restaurant more and will be taking a salary going forward. Is there a potential problem with having received both PPP loans and receiving income for both during the 8-week period? I say no, because I know who this is and I know what you're doing and I know that you're killing yourself at a restaurant. I know what you're doing. So for you who wrote this question, you know who you are. You should be on this webinar. If you're not, you're in trouble. But anyway, no, you are killing yourself at the restaurant. You legitimately are there working, mopping floors and cleaning. No, I don't see a problem. I would just, that webinar on fraud, keep track of your time because, keep track of your time. And remember, this loan, you are not required to work. You don't have to work. I'm telling people, make sure they work. Make sure your employees work. You can have them sit at home and do nothing. Another question. Is there a required amount of time that the business must stay open? No. After the 2.5 months of payroll is expended, do we need to keep our doors open for a specific amount of time? Gladly, no. I would be sad if you had to close your doors, but no, you do not. Next question. We have 3 employees that didn't get paid for a month to save on, okay, so you had 3 employees that didn't get paid for a month to save on payroll. And now you have this money, the PPP money. I'm getting sick of saying PPP. I got to come up with another acronym. That's a PPP. Anyway, so you now have PPP money. What's the best way to pay these employees back wages? We're thinking of using vacation pay to pay back wages. Thoughts? That's a really great thing. And your employees are super awesome for working and not getting paid. Really, these are people that you want to have as employees. Yes, use the vacation. Don't use that PPP money. Remember, that's for current stuff. So I would do 2 different types of payroll, meaning you're going to pay them out of your own operating account, either through their vacation, and then you're going to do regular. So 2 different payrolls. What I think you might want to do is say, hey, I'm going to pay them 40 hours for their work week, and then I'm going to pay them 30 hours of their vacation time, and that's 70. Don't do that. Just do 2 separate payrolls and don't pay that vacation time or what's due for past. Don't pay that with the PPP money. And watch my last webinar on the fraud stuff. And you're not committing fraud, right? I'm just saying, just be careful. Next question. If there were changes in employees, are we obligated to match them 1-for-1 with regards to their job titles? Yeah, I talked about that last time. You do not. Nope. Okay, so this is the last question. This was the thing I told you I was going to put on here that really is horrible. This is the exemption for rehire that is actually in the law. So it's in the law. This is the way that it's written, that says how you can have these, the title is called exemption for rehire, and what are the circumstances in which that someone can be rehired. It's just really mind-boggling what they wrote. So I am now going to see, do I have any more questions? Okay, let's start the questions. And I think there's another area for questions. Oh, under chat. Okay, so, oh good, not a lot of questions this time. If 100% of the PPP goes to payroll, but the FTE and or pay rates are less than the look back, is it likely all could be forgiven without penalty? 100% of the PPP goes to payroll. That's super awesome. If you can, I can't even imagine if 100% of your PP goes to payroll, how do you not have the full-time equivalent and the pay rates the same? I don't know how. I'm just telling you, they should be the same. There's something wrong in your math. Call my office, get a consultation or something. There's something wrong in your math, because how are you coming out? Well, maybe the amount is very small. So, but the full-time equivalent and or pay rates are less than the look back. All of it may not be forgiven, but remember, you have 75% that, and so you've met that requirement, right? You've met the 75%. If 100% go to the payroll, you've met it 100%, which is super awesome. No, you probably won't get it all. If your statement is true, then and it's not a penalty, right? You just have to pay it back. They're going to do a reduction. So yeah, I guess it is a penalty because they're going to reduce the amount of your forgiveness. That's all that is. All right. So that is the only question that I got, which is super awesome. And I will now, I'm not sure about additional webinars. I know everybody's getting busy and they're probably sick of hearing this, but more blogs, definitely. Going to do some YouTube stuff. Send me emails, send me questions you've got, because like for this one, someone sent me that question. I did an entire webinar on it because a lot of people were asking the same thing over and over again. I hope you have a great day. Go make some money. Go get some new clients. Go sell some food, whatever it is. And I'll talk to you guys next week.